In today's video, we are talking all things Dollar Tree Christmas. I've got some new ideas to share with you, some old projects to revisit, and so many tips and tricks to creating that high-end, sophisticated look, even if you're on a Dollar Tree budget. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. There are so many different options to choose from when it comes to decorative trees. Basically the trees that you use to style your shelves with and your surfaces with, but this doesn't have to cost a lot of money. My recommendation is to search on some of your favorite websites or go there in person and see how you could use Dollar Tree items to create a similar look by using similar materials. For example, if you love the look of these woven trees, just take the woven boxes from Dollar Tree as well as one of their tree forms, just remove the tinsel and apply that all around. Now, as I was doing the math and adding all of these pieces from the Dollar Tree up, it's not gonna be a major savings. So while it will look beautiful and be completely custom to you, the savings just isn't really worth the time spent to create it. But there are several different ways that you can create a high-end look using some Dollar Tree items. So the things that I bought from the Dollar Tree were the 2 white foam cones and then one as a little riser, so they vary in height. Glued those pieces together using hot glue before we add wood chips. You can find wood chips basically at any hardware store, and they're usually anywhere between $5 and $10. I believe I paid about $7 for this wood chip bag, and I still, after doing all 3 of these trees, have half of a bag left over. To apply the wood chips, I just used hot glue. I focused the larger wood chip pieces towards the bottom, starting at the bottom, then progressively getting smaller once reaching that peak at the top. Now is also a good time to look for any gaps or areas that you might want to fill in a little bit more, as well as remove any glue strands. Because I found the largest foam cone at the Goodwill bins and I only used half of the bag, this project cost well under $10. You could stop here, but I wanted to give it that restoration hardware Pottery Barn look of driftwood. So I mixed up some gray and brown paint, just then diluted it with a little bit of water and applied it with a damp sponge just to give it again that more driftwood appearance. I think this is also a really good project to try because this isn't super theme specific, so no matter what your theme that year for Christmas is, it will pretty much always work. However, with that being said, I know not everybody has the time or the patience to glue on all of these wood chips. So let's get a quick win in. So from the Dollar Tree, I do not recommend buying these, especially for $1.50, but these for $5 are a very fair price point. Next, you can just use a planner that you already have. I found this one at the Goodwill bins, definitely giving that McGee & Co. Magnolia energy, and we are just going to combine these 2 pieces together. Super simple, the tree just pulls right out of that base, and then we are just going to hot glue it in place in this planter instead. And things that look just like this, even at Target, it's definitely gonna cost more than $6. So just try to find those areas where you can get a quick win in and still save. Now let's talk about bells. Instead of buying these for $3, because I think they just look kind of cheap and cheesy, we can do a little bit better. You're gonna go to the kitchen section and grab 2 of these silver bowls here. 2 paints that I basically always have on hand is an aged brass paint from Michael's. I will link everything in the description box below, and antiquing wax. I'm just going to mix those together until we get that nice rustic patinaed brass look. Do the inside, do the outside, make sure that everything is really well covered. And then for the topper, I have this hardware in my stash. Just glued it down with some super glue gel and then grabbed some ribbon, also from my stash from last year, tied a bow around it. Now, before you add your wax, you're going to want to seal the bottom of where the wax is going to sit. So I just did so using some matte Mod Podge. Once that's fully dry, I just like personally to get my candles from the Goodwill bins. I try to find a scent that's appropriate for the season to place inside of here. Add your wicks, then of course your wax, and this is the end result. I think it looks really beautiful, really festive for just around the $5 price point. One of my favorite new pieces from the Pottery Barn collection were these candles here. Again, similar vibe, but a slightly different look. And I found this piece, I'm assuming is wall decor. at the Goodwill bins. Unfortunately, I did have to buy the entire situation just in order to get these bells. After my coupon, I believe I paid around $6 or $7 for all 3 of them. But my thought for these was to cut one of them down. I chose the one that has a more common silhouette to a glass candle. Using my clamps and a hacksaw, I was able to do this in probably 5 minutes, and I was able to remove that top section, which will be the top of our now candle. But before adding our candle inside, I did just want to brighten these up a little bit using that same mixture that we used in the previous project and applying it to this one instead. After the paint had fully dried, it's just time now to add our candle. This is one I found at the Goodwill bins, but the shape of this base of the bell fits this size of Bath & Body Works candles, which works out really great because I usually don't really like the packaging from Bath & Body Works. With the candle then placed inside and just painting that top rim there so everything just looks nice and seamless, it's just time now to add our jute rope from the Dollar Tree. And I just kept referring back to the Pottery Barn image to make sure that I was tying it in a similar way. Very carefully just burn those fibers so it gives a more finished look. And that about wraps it up. 3 bells for under $10, one of which is a candle, and I think styled as a set of 3 on any shelf, on any surface, will look absolutely beautiful. Now, if you really just don't have time on your side this holiday season and you still want the look for less, this is a nice alternative from Target at only $8.99. Also from HomeGoods, this bell candle, I bought 2 of these last year. They were each $12.99. Again, it's not going to be as affordable as making it yourself, of course, but if you don't have the time or patience for it and you have it in the budget, I would definitely go this route instead. Another new piece that I really loved was this marble snowflake cheese board. I think marble is just a timeless material to begin with, and the fact that they made them in these really festive shapes I think is just a really fun way to decorate for the holiday season. You can find those same shapes though at the Dollar Tree. They're just going to be made of plastic, which I wouldn't use them just as they are, but they are the perfect thing to make molds. For the material, you could use mortar mix, cement. In this case, I wanted to do plaster. I find little bags of plaster all the time at the Goodwill bins. They're usually part of some STEM activity for kids, and I just use those bags for these projects instead of having to buy the big bag of plaster of Paris. Before adding our plaster in, it's helpful to just grease the bottom of one side and the inside of the other just to make sure that it will pull apart a little bit easier. For consistency, I do 3 parts plaster to 1 part water. You get a nice dough-like consistency. Just kept adding spoonfuls until it's about halfway filled before pressing in the other snowflake tray directly on top of it. After about an hour or so, you should be good, but I have had molds break on me in the past. To remove the top tray, I like to flip the whole thing upside down, just let gravity be your friend, and then just carefully pry it out from that bottom tray, and you'll have a little something that looks like this. I wanted the inside to be smoother than it was in some areas, but I still wanted that bowl shape so it wasn't just like a flat piece. So I sanded it down, I painted it with some white acrylic paint, and then to get that marble look, just took a detail brush and some dark gray paint and then just buffing it out with a damp sponge to create a subtle marble look. Once you're happy with the overall look of your faux marble, just don't forget to seal it. But I think that this project for under $5, you do get an overall similar look, but it was so easy and so budget friendly. Moving along now to stocking holders. So this is, again, it's one of those things, usually you have to buy more than one, so it does add up quickly, but there are so many ways to save. So for example, if you wanted to pick up several of these and give it more of like an old world feel or an aged brass look, which some of you may have seen me do to these nutcrackers here. Now, I have not seen these this year. The way I find them is at the Goodwill bins. So that's my recommendation for you. Check your thrift stores and you'll be surprised at how many you can actually still find. Now, last year, I again spray painted these with some metallic brass spray paint and then just went over it with a dusting of black paint. Grabbed this wood piece from the Dollar Tree, added these indentations for the nutcrackers to sit inside of, and just secured everything with E6000. Added a knob in front of each nutcracker so that, of course, you can hang your stocking. Super simple, super affordable, and I know so many of you guys really enjoyed this project. But you could really apply the same concept to several items from the Dollar Tree, like these little white houses or even small picture frames. Last year, I shared with you guys this frame from the Dollar Tree as well as this canvas print. Just simply cut it down to the appropriate size and attached it to an existing just plain stocking holder that I have. I think this would also be a really good idea to put a picture of the person's stocking that it belongs to. Lots of different ways to go about this that do not involve spending an unnecessary amount of money at a high-end store. Moving along now to holiday-inspired artwork. So many different ways, both large and small scale, that you can do this using Dollar Tree items. So one of the most inexpensive ways to do this is to switch up your family photographs during the holiday season. And one thing you might notice, if you're looking at a high-end home, usually their family gallery wall, the picture's actually very small, but the mat is really what takes up most of that space, which works out really well because you can print small pictures at home, just cut down the mats from the Dollar Tree, add some seasonal photography of you and your family, and I think it's a really inexpensive way, but a very sweet way to infuse that seasonality in your space. Moving along now to our small scale artwork, which is equally as important. One thing I will say, now if you want your picture to look more like a painting, one recommendation I have is to print whatever Etsy download or artwork that you find on canvas. So just remove the canvas from the frame that you pick up at the Dollar Tree, and I think you'll get a lot closer to a high-end look if you're on a budget. Which now brings me to picture frame ornaments. This is a really weirdly expensive thing on high-end stores, and you just don't have to spend that because you can find small frames at the thrift store, at the Dollar Tree, and turn them into ornaments by simply adding ribbon to the back. Or if they're wood frames, you can even add hooks, screw those in place on either side and add some pretty ribbon. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Also, they don't necessarily have to be family pictures. You could create your own collection of landscape pictures, add those to your tree if you are doing more of a vintage style tree. And it's also a really great thing to add to any gift. So for example, from the Dollar Tree, grab one of these frames. One of the reasons I like these is there's already a means to hook it onto your tree, but it's also not super holiday specific that they couldn't hang it up somewhere the rest of the year either. Just decided to remove that chain link so then that way we can attach some ribbon to it. Frames that look really similar to this on Amazon cost upwards around $20. So if you can find it for $1.25, I definitely recommend doing so. So grab a gift box from the thrift store or the Dollar Tree, and we're just now going to create a luxury bundle gift idea using primarily Dollar Tree things. So any gift box, rather than use decorative shred, I like to use fabric. And in this case, we're going to use one of the satin pillowcases from the Dollar Tree. For the pillowcase, you can even take it a step further and monogram their initials. Then of course, now our frame, even adding a picture, just makes it again feel that much more thoughtful. Another really thoughtful thing to add to a luxury or wellness inspired gift are these lavender infused weighted eye masks. You can do this super easily. Just grab some rice from the Dollar Tree, some fabric also from the Dollar Tree. We dry our own eucalyptus and lavender, so you can just grab some of the buds from that, add it to the rice, make its own casing first, and then simply make a covering for that casing. So that way that's the part you're washing and everything can just be really safe and sanitary. Next, just grab any airtight jar and just make a body scrub that you've used and really like. This one specifically is a brown sugar body scrub. I also like one a lot with coffee. It's really good for cellulite. I'll add the recipes or I'll link them so that you guys can find those recipes as well if you are interested. A few more little add-ins like a loofah or a gua sha roller, a jade roller for just $1.25. If you were to buy all of these pieces from Amazon, it would be upwards around $50. But because we went the Dollar Tree route, now I can add that into a Sephora gift card or gift a massage, and it can still be really thoughtful, really beautiful, but on a budget. Next up, let's talk about advent calendars. Definitely a fun countdown to Christmas. However, I don't usually like to buy the ones or make the ones that are big and bulky and take up so much of your storage space. So this year I wanted to challenge myself and use only items from the Dollar Tree, as well as I wanted it to be something that I could reuse year after year, and I wanted it to not take up much of my Christmas storage space. So from the Dollar Tree, grabbed 1 pack of those wooden dowels. You get 4 of them. Just did a color wash on them after cutting them down, just getting progressively wider like the shape of a tree. Because I needed to know where these would connect, I needed to drill small holes in each of the dowels on either side. I just attached them using Dollar Tree jute rope, but you could use anything that you have on hand. Once everything was then connected, I did just want to add some picks to all of the wooden dowels. Secured those in place with floral wire, and then it was just time to add our bags. So the only thing I could really come up with were these little envelopes that you can find in like the mailing section of Dollar Tree. They come in packs of 20 or 30. I just opted for the 30 in case my stamp leaks or I make a mistake. I will have more than enough. I've talked to you guys about this stamp block before. Definitely if you see these at Dollar Tree and your handwriting isn't the best like mine isn't, using things like this just give a more finished look overall. So just stamped those in place, counting down the days until Christmas. To make the bags feel a little bit more festive, I grabbed the red baker's twine from the Crafter's Square section, just tying those onto each of the envelopes. Added a ribbon that I had left over from last year, and this was the end result. For just about $10, I think I have a really fun, festive advent calendar that I know my kids will really enjoy. It just doesn't have to cost a lot to have these things in your space, and it definitely doesn't have to take up a lot of space. There are ways to use your wall space in a festive way, and it can still be very beautiful on a budget. Another thing you could try to think about doing is something that I did last year, and that's just to take existing decor that you have out year round and turn that into an advent calendar. So this is wall decor I have up year round, and then I just took trays from the Dollar Tree, cut them down to make like little boxes for Advent. So I grabbed the numbers from Amazon, just sprayed them with metallic brass spray paint, attached it with wood glue, made little boxes out of some cardstock. And this honestly worked out so well last year because the only part that I have to store are these small little boxes, and I'm able to do so. They barely take up any space in a big holiday box, and it was done so super affordably using Dollar Tree items. Something that I've really been loving this year on Anthropologie are these brass and glass ornament displays. Now these are part of the Dollar Tree Plus section, so a little bit more expensive, but still a fraction of the cost when you compare it to anything from Anthropologie. So grabbing one of these brass trays here, we're just going to now turn it on its side, make sure it's nice and clean and that there is no dust, so you'll get really good adhesion for these clips also from the Dollar Tree. Adding in some Loctite glass glue, I'm going to attach those to the inside of the top of this tray. One thing that I did want to mention that is limiting is that because these trays are pretty shallow, the ornaments also have to be quite narrow, so think icicles, small pine cones, greenery, maybe a flat clay ornament, or perhaps doing a picture frame ornament. Lots of options here, and I think it's a really affordable but beautiful way to display special ornaments. Next up, let's talk about holiday candles. One recent find from the Dollar Tree were these here, definitely giving off that Ralph Lauren vibe that is so trendy this year. What is nice too is the packaging is really beautiful, but also the candle has that same pattern. Now at just $1.25, I'm not expecting the scent to be incredible, but I think if you're on a budget and you want that Ralph Lauren aesthetic, or even to gift as a hostess gift, this is a really great start. An oldie but a goodie, these red candles here. There's also some from Walmart that I really love that are ribbed that are also super affordable. And then you can either grab your tapers at Dollar Tree, or I found these recently at the thrift store in this huge brass bundle, definitely giving McGee & Co., but for $3. And this looks beautiful, very festive as is, but just grabbing some ribbon from the Dollar Tree as well, just adding those around the candles or the candle holders. Again, you just get that festive feel on a budget. Something that's always nice to have nearby a set of taper candles is some matches, and to display them beautifully like this glass container here, looks like it should cost way more than just $1.50. I think if you're gifting jewelry this year, this would be a really beautiful way to present it. Speaking of candles, you could also try making some wood candle houses. What's nice about this is such an affordable project, but it definitely makes a statement. You can grab some wood from the Dollar Tree or for free like I'm showing here. And then as for the candlesticks, you can definitely grab these from the Dollar Tree like I showed earlier, or you could just use candlesticks that you are not using at home, which is what I did. So this actually ended up being a free project for me, which is even better. So taking my miter saw, I just removed top sections there to basically make the shape of a house. Just rotating my miter saw to the degree that matched the markings that I made of where I wanted the peaks to go. Using 2 of these candle holders, I found that huge bag at the thrift store months and months ago, and then I had so many left over, so I thought this would make the perfect thing because these didn't have any bases to begin with. Just needed to create an opening for this candle holder, so just changed my drill bit to the depth of the dowel of these candle holders, just drilling enough so that I'll be able to add a small section from these candle holders in place. Because these were secure enough, I don't believe I added any adhesive to these. I think these look absolutely beautiful for literally being a free project. A similar but more minimal project is just to create these triangles out of wood pieces from the Dollar Tree. Just take some measurements of the height you want each of your trees to be, and then you just want to cut them at an angle so then that way they're nice and mitered, adding some wood glue. Because there was no way for me to clamp these at this angle, I just decided to use painter's tape, and that worked out really well. Now you could paint this or stain this or just leave it as it is. I opted to just use my antiquing wax just to give it a more primitive rustic feel. You could also distress this much more to really give it that aged look, but a very simple project, totally customizable and super affordable. A similar but slightly different project if you don't feel super comfortable in your ability to create mitered edges and corners. Really easy thing is to just grab these triangle wooden frames from the Dollar Tree, and then you just need to push that back piece out, just giving it a scuff sand to remove any loose paper. Place one over top of the other, just make a marking, just make sure that it's nice and straight. And then that's just one simple straight cut with a miter saw or a circular saw or jigsaw. You can create a really beautiful custom piece for your space if you're on a Dollar Tree budget. But the wood section from the Crafters Square area in Dollar Tree has really come a long way, and you can create so many really beautiful pieces if you're on a budget. So one of those items I want to recommend is the wooden cubes. So they are just one for $1.25 or $1.50 now, but that's still way more affordable than any other place. And what you can do with these is turn them into wooden gift box ornaments. Again, mixing gray and brown paint together, adding a little bit of water to give a color wash over these wooden pieces, just to give them a more high-end distressed look. Applied the same mix over the trees as well. With a dry, clean paper towel, just wipe off any of the excess, and it just gives a more finished look overall. To give these a means to hang them, I just added a small nail to the tops of the trees and to the corners of each of the presents. I also embellished the presents with some velvet ribbon. You can also now find that at the Dollar Tree. And I think these feel really fun, really festive, and were so affordable. One of the pieces I really loved last year from Pottery Barn was this bell curtain wall art. Grabbed this pack of bells, I believe, off of Amazon. I don't remember exactly how much they were, but if I can find them, I will link them in the description box below. Just lined them up, seeing about how many rows and columns I would need to really fill up that wall space. Grabbing one of the dowels from Dollar Tree, we're just going to stain it before we attach all of these bells. Applied this stain using a eyeshadow brush, which is one of my favorite tricks, is to use makeup brushes to apply stain. I think you just get a more seamless look in the end. I taped the dowel in place so that way I would be able to see where each one was actually falling and everything would line up nice and straight. And although I like the one from Pottery Barn better, I still think you get an overall similar look if you're on a budget. So I'm the kind of person, I love bells year round, but I especially love them during Christmas. So getting that vintage look initially from the Dollar Tree is basically impossible, but you get great starting pieces to make really custom pieces for your space. So I found these cowbells at the Dollar Tree. I found these recently, so you guys should also be able to get your hands on these as well. And not every project has to be a major change. Sometimes it's just the little things. I didn't really love the color of those bells initially, so we're just going to distress it with a combination of paints that I will link in the description box below. Again, just using a makeup brush so you get a more seamless finish. Now these shepherd hooks were hooks that I had. They were from the Target dollar spot, I believe, a year or two ago. Just putting these on there initially, but there was something still feeling a little bit off. So I just decided to take some scrap wood from my stash. Just made it feel a little bit more imperfect and weathered, and then stained that piece as well. Adding that now to the inside of what was previously hung there. And I think it just gives a more rustic, primitive feel, and you can definitely achieve it if you're on a budget. And if you love a vintage Christmas look as much as I do, before you put all that paint away, go ahead and grab yourself a couple packs of these bells from the Dollar Tree as well. Now price increased to $1.50 for 6 of these bells. I'm also just going to add the exact same mixture I did for the cowbells now to these. Again, just applying it with a makeup brush. I ended up doing 2 coats on these, and then it was just time now to decide how I was going to style them. So you actually don't need to hang them on anything. Placed on a bed of cedar or pine will give a really chic look in the end. Just going to grab that bowl that I DIY'd also from the Dollar Tree. Some of you might remember, you just take some cement mix, 2 of these bowls here that you'll find in like the catering and party section of your Dollar Tree. Just going to press one into the other to create this mold here. Just going to then sand and distress it a bit, really staying in line with that primitive look that I'm really trying to achieve in some of my Christmas decorating. Some other bell ideas. So last year, some of you may remember I found those bell mini wreaths, or you could use the bells that come in the packages from the Dollar Tree, it doesn't matter. Now I don't have a use for those mini wreaths, so I just decided to break those apart because I thought these would make really cute little place card holders. So just cutting that piece down and hammering it in place, now you can create your own labels, print them out, and place them in your table setting. I believe Dollar Tree sells these in a pack of 6, so you could essentially really just create 6 of these for $1.50. Another thought I had was to also use these to display certain Christmas cards or any holiday family recipes. I think there's a lot of ways you could customize this to fit your space best. For the smaller bells, I'm not sure exactly how many you get, but I know there's a lot in that little bag, and you can create little bell napkin rings, which is exactly what I did with these thrifted ones. Just cut them in half because I only had 3, so that way I could end up with 6. And again, just adding these small little festive touches just makes your space feel that much more fun and festive for this upcoming holiday season. Touching on what I mentioned earlier is to use these bells to display some holiday cards. So just took this battery operated light pack, and we are just going to string our lights through the top hoops of all of these bells. And then we're just going to hide the battery pack in this ribbon that I picked up from the thrift store. I think this is so beautiful if you wanted to put family pictures or, again, Christmas cards that you receive, and it can look so beautiful even if you're on a really tight budget. Another project to consider doing with the Dollar Tree bells is to turn them into a wreath. Grab any sort of wire hoop form or wreath form and simply just slide the bells on. One thing that I wish I would have done is I wish I would have finished it all the way through and also varied the sizes of each of the bells just to give it a more curated and collected feel. Again, taking that same ribbon from the thrift store, and we can just create some sort of a bow topper. You can also add greenery, totally customizable, and you can find pretty much every piece you'll need at the Dollar Tree. Moving along now to ornaments. I've shared with you guys already that I'll be doing a cluster tree this year, and in order to do that style of a Christmas tree, you need a lot of the same or similar ornaments in various sizes. So what was really nice is I was able to thrift or find them at Dollar Tree, and I was able to create so many clusters for such an affordable price point. Another style of ornament I definitely recommend picking up at the Dollar Tree are their clear ornaments, because it really is like a blank slate. So you could fill these if you find some really beautiful foliage or pick stems that you don't have enough necessarily to make an arrangement. You can always just fill these clear ornaments, give the caps a more vintage feel, add some velvet ribbon, and you can create a really beautiful look for next to nothing. Other ideas to fill these with pearls and white ribbon. All of these pieces you can find at the Dollar Tree, including the clear ornaments, and you can create a really beautiful look even if you're on a really tight budget. I cut the ribbons down all to about the same length and then just filled them, pressing them up against the sides. Just to give them a more festive look, decided to add pearls as well. Now, of course, it's not identical to the inspiration, but if you can find things at the Dollar Tree to get you pretty close, I always recommend doing so. Another idea is to take 1 pack of Epsom salt as well as some silver glitter, fill the bottom of the clear ornament, and again, just add some scrap florals or foliage that really speak to the season of Christmas. And I think you can create a really similar look and be very happy with the end result. Another idea is, of course, to use paint. And I've seen several people on social media use spray paint, but in this example, I'm using acrylic paint that I mixed up and slightly watered down. Just went in sections and then continued to spin the ornament around until the entire ornament was covered, and then just flipping the ornament upside down and just letting any excess paint fall out. Because the outside of these plastic ornaments looks shiny still, it gives the impression of almost a marbled-like look. So I think if you're doing a more modern Christmas, this is an ornament I definitely recommend trying. And just like, of course, you could paint the inside, you can also paint the outside if you're looking for a more matte, shiny, metallic look. So to start, I first spray painted the ornaments in some metallic oil rubbed bronze spray paint, and then while the spray paint was not completely wet but just a little bit tacky, sprinkled on some baking powder just to give a more mattified modern look. Once the paint is fully dry, then you just want to remove any of the excess of the baking powder before adding any other metallic spray paints on top of that. When you're happy with the end result, just tie some jute or some suede ribbon, and I think you get a really beautiful look on a budget. Another less permanent way to switch up your ornaments is if you have a lot of, let's say, one type of ornament, but that just doesn't really go with your scheme this year, rather than go out and buy a whole new set of ornaments that you have to now store again for the following year, grab a pack of balloons that fit your scheme this year and then just simply cut the top down just a little bit, so then that way you'll be able to open it enough so to wrap around your ornament and place the cap on top. If you have a pretty sparse tree, one way to help fill in some of those gaps, I wouldn't do this maybe like more than 4 times in your tree because this can go tacky really quickly. But if you have some gaps that you need to fill, I would just take a pack of balloons that fit your scheme this year, blow them up about 6 inches big, and then stick them far back into those gaps. So it doesn't really look like a balloon when you're standing far back enough. It just looks like a giant ornament. So again, just use it sparingly, but it is a way to cut down on eating away at so much of your Christmas storage, but still budget friendly. Moving along now to our specialty ornaments. So those are those ornaments that are basically just one of a kind on the Christmas tree. One of your favorites was when we did the cluster acorn ornament. So just taking some Easter eggs from the previous Easter, just gonna spray paint those with some white paint, and then taking these pine cones, just removing some sections from the bottom so that way they fit in the egg a little bit better. Just hot glued that pine cone in place so it would be one solid piece. Once that part was complete, it was just time now to take our yarn, also from the Dollar Tree, and just cover the egg portion. Taking a closer look at the Acorn tops from Pottery Barn, they did have some glitter, so taking some glitter glue, also from the Dollar Tree, I'm just going to paint that on before we add our pieces to give a means to hang it. Grabbing some twine that I had in my stash, or you could use the twine from the Dollar Tree, I just created these little knots that I then pressed into the top of the pine cones. Gathered them at the top and created a loop as a means to hang it. And I think it's a really beautiful ornament. I think you get a really sophisticated look for just a few dollars. Another repurposing idea is to make some sweater ornaments. So if you have a sweater that's just really itchy and you have some styrofoam balls in your craft stash, you can turn that middle section of the sweater into a pillow and then use the sleeves as ornaments. Leaving some excess at both the top and the bottom and hollowing out a small section from the styrofoam so that way the excess fabric has a place to go. Once you're happy with how that looks, then you can just grab an ornament cap, adding some hot glue to the cap and pressing it in place, and then adding some velvet ribbon. And I think it's a really great way if you're on a budget to create a set of 4 or 6 ornaments that can look really beautiful on your Christmas tree. Another repurposing idea is to take votive candle holders and flip them upside down, almost giving like a bell ornament look. Take some ornament caps from ornaments you're not using this year or ornaments that you are preparing to throw away or donate, and just instead repurpose them on these votive candle holders. Just take some wire cutters and remove that section that would keep the cap on a traditionally shaped ornament. And then for glue, I would say super glue gel, E6000, or the best would probably be the Loctite glass glue. But these have stayed on for, I think these were 2 years ago now, and they're still in perfect shape. So definitely something if you see at the thrift store, or take the votive candle holders from the Dollar Tree, get some caps, some twine, and you've got yourself a set of Mercury bell ornaments on a budget. You could also do these with the Dollar Tree houses. You could even turn these into little gingerbread houses. Add a small pilot hole and then place a nail inside, grab some Dollar Tree ribbon, and again, a set of 4 ornaments can cost about $7. But you can also use ornaments in maybe some unexpected ways if you're on a budget. So for example, I found 4 of these deer bust ornaments, just removed the parts that I didn't really care for. Also had to end up gluing one of those antlers back on. With that part complete, now it's just time to attach these deer busts onto our scrap piece of wood. Now, I just personally eyeballed this. I think it would be really hard to measure something like this, so I just tried to make sure that they were equally distanced from each other. Then it was just time for paint, but when I started to paint it, I realized that there was still a gap between the deer bust and the wood piece. So I just decided to go over that so everything was just nice and solid and seamless before continuing on. To fill those seams, you could use caulking or plaster. I believe I used acrylic paint with baking soda, but again, it's just adding those seasonal touches, but in an affordable way. Moving along now to plate settings. If you ever need some really great inspiration during the holiday season, I do recommend checking out Pottery Barn because they have so many beautiful options, and you can kind of see how they're putting things together and what looks good together, and then go to the Dollar Tree and see what you can come up with for a lot less. I love these holly berry glasses this year, but definitely a consistent favorite is the fluted brass chargers. Now, of course, you can use these as chargers for your plate setting, but you can also turn these into some fun seasonal decor. In addition to one of the brass chargers, you'll also need some candlestick holders, just again to grab the tops of those. Hammer those down so they're nice and flush and your candles will sit upright. Secure these in place with some E6000, and it's just a super simple festive project, but definitely quick and budget friendly. When it comes to placemats, I think that Dollar Tree, historically speaking, has always carried these plaid placemats. They're the only ones I would really consider From the Dollar Tree, I think as time has gone on, they've actually gotten worse and more expensive. So if you see these at the Dollar Tree and you love a plaid Christmas, definitely worth the $1.50. Now, of course, you could definitely use them as placemats, but you could also turn them into some sort of an advent calendar with just a needle and thread. Again, stencil on some numbers. There's definitely room to do all 24, but I personally just decided to use it for almost like an activity advent calendar. Just created this little Christmas bucket list on Canva, printed and cut all of those pieces out. And then to hang it, I just used one of the dowels from the Dollar Tree, folded the top over so it created a loop for the dowel to then slide through. Also, just to hide some of that opening, I created these little velvet bows and glued those in place. I know for a lot of us, Christmas can feel very overwhelming and very busy, so having things like this is just like little small reminders to live in the moment and be present and do all of the things together as a family. Another way to use these plaid placemats is to create a reusable gift bag. So in order to do that, you just need to create an opening at the top, and again, just to create that loop, fold the fabric onto itself. Now that you've created that loop at the top, just grab some ribbon from the Dollar Tree and just slide that through until it meets back at the point that you started. I think it would also be really fun to embroider someone's initials or name on the bag so you know every year who that bag belongs to. Christmas is one of the toughest times of the year for a lot of people to find opportunities to reduce their carbon footprint, and I think projects like these make it feel really easy. For the next project, you could just make a plaid pillow. So if you wanted to just use one, just again create that opening, place your pillow insert, and then sew the seam back up. Or if you want them to be plaid on both the front and the back, just place two of them together, the good sides facing together so the bad sides are facing out. You're just going to want to glue or sew all along the three sides of your pillow before then flipping it right side out, placing your insert inside, and then finishing off that remaining side. And you could definitely just choose to stop here, but if you wanted to turn it into the shape of a bow, you could just grab any ribbon that you might have on stash that's a little bit thicker and just cinch that lumbar pillow in the middle so it creates a bow-like shape. Another textile related project is to turn these into placemats. So if you have an existing stocking that maybe you're not using this year, use that as a guide to cutting out the fabric. I just gave myself about an inch of allowance to account for the seams so that way it wouldn't be too small once I turned it right side out. With that part complete, then you could just take some faux fur from the Dollar Tree. At the time they had these faux fur scarves. Just cut that down to the appropriate size and hot glued that in place. Grabbing some suede ribbon, just attached it to the inside of the stocking as a means to hang it. Now, of course, it's not perfect, but plaid faux fur stockings at places like Pottery Barn can be a small fortune. So if you are on a budget, you can definitely get a somewhat similar look for less. Another thing to do with those faux fur scarves, or they now just sell the faux fur fabric, is to turn them into wreaths. I see these often on Anthropology, as well as CB2. So for supplies, you just need one foam green wreath form and then one of the faux fur scarves. You're just going to hot glue that in place. And then to embellish it a little bit, you could add some pearls. I feel like this gives a very Anthropology-like look, but definitely not for an Anthropology price tag. Earlier in this video, I mentioned using the satin pillowcase as your gift box filler, but you can also use that as your wrapping. The beauty section of Dollar Tree is the section that I noticed being the most different from each other. Not all Dollar Trees are created equal, so in that way it is like thrifting. But if you go pretty often, eventually you'll come across those unicorn finds that I know so many people haul and talk about. Once you've corralled enough pieces that you feel it makes a thoughtful, full gift, Again, by not purchasing through Walmart or Amazon, you're able to give a really thoughtful, complete gift and also have it in the budget to gift a gift card so they can get exactly what they want. Once you've stacked all of your items, then you just want to wrap that satin pillowcase around until everything looks nice and seamless. Grab some jute rope from the Dollar Tree or just from your stash, or some beautiful ribbon. Add some greenery, maybe make a little DIY ornament with their name on it. Just again, to show you that you can give a very thoughtful gift without breaking the bank. Which of course now brings us to gift wrap. So your gift bags, your wrapping paper. This year, my gift wrap scheme is to do that just traditional classic Christmas red, just keeping it very monochromatic, grabbing the wrapping paper from the Dollar Tree, and I found so much beautiful satin ribbon at the thrift store, and I think it's just gonna look really timeless, really chic, sophisticated, but on a budget. As for the gift tags, I love these from McGee & Co, and they're not that expensive, but then I came across these at the Goodwill bins for pennies on the dollar, grabbing some velvet ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I think I can create an overall similar look, but on a budget. Another way to potentially use that velvet ribbon from the Dollar Tree is to take maybe just basic red velvet pillows that you might have. I thrifted these ones, and create some sort of design. For example, I contemplated using different ribbons that I have and adding bows to the front of this pillow, or just potentially adding them to the corners, or just sewing the ribbon in place, writing out those typical Christmas sayings. Also, if you're not finding any tissue paper that you really like, consider using a napkin instead. So I found these recently at the Dollar Tree. Also, if you're hosting in any capacity, one nice hosting touch is just to wrap extra rolls of toilet paper with some seasonal tissue paper or napkins. It's just those little details that you might not think people notice, but they do. And I think it just makes your space feel that much more pulled together. Last but not least, let's talk about some wardrobe tricks using the hair bows from the Dollar Tree. You could definitely choose to use these in your gift wrap scheme, but also you can use these on your clothing. You can add them, depending on their size, to the top of some heels, potentially adding them to the top button of a sweater or on a belt. Adding these really inexpensive bows just makes it feel that much more festive. You don't necessarily need to go out and buy an entirely new outfit. You just need to maybe make a few modifications to make it feel a little bit more fun and festive. With all that being said, that really wraps it up for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments if you found something helpful, or a project that you really like that you might want to try, or maybe a DIY project that you've done from the Dollar Tree that you want to share. I hope that everybody has a safe and fantastic week, and I will see you back here next Sunday. Bye for now.